Tommy Hardy has the most important quality I was looking for Tommy Conlon, and that was this rough exterior, this guy who had this Brando kind of thing I wanted, but underneath he was a little boy. There was a vulnerability and a pain, a genuine pain caused by something in his past that has been almost crippling in a way, emotionally. And Tommy had that. And I knew that because he lived with me for 5 days. And the question was he going to be open enough to expose that on celluloid? And he was, bravely. Jennifer Morrison was one of many actresses on a list that were coming in to read. And I think she was the third person to come in that day. And this has never happened to me before. When she finished, I looked at Randy Hiller and I said, "We're done." And she said, "Well, we have to see everybody else there." I said, "Okay, we'll go through the day, but no more after today because we're done." And that was Tess. When we were writing Warrior, I said to Anthony, I want Frank to play Frank, because Frank has a mixed martial arts background. He studied with the Gracies jiu-jitsu for 11, 12 years. He was a Golden Gloves boxer. So Frank had that. And so that's his great love, is fighting. And his other great love is acting, excluding his family, of course. So those two things, like, this is great. So we wrote the part for Frank, and Frank, being Frank, started doing all the work because we'd worked together in the past, so he knew, and it's what he does now, and it's the way it should be. I hooked him up with Greg Jackson. He lived at Greg Jackson. He lived at Greg Jackson's gym. Above Greg's gym, there are just bunk beds and cots, and people can crash there. Frank was living there, training there all day and sleeping there at night. He'd go to dinner with Greg and his family. He was part of the whole, team of fighters there. Warrior, there's more that happens outside the cage than in the cage. Dramatically, emotionally, the complexity of the characters is such that I needed actors, which is even more difficult because now you have to have actors who you have to teach how to fight. So in essence, it's easier outside the cage, but you have to make the movie will live or die on the reality of what's happening in the fighting, because if that doesn't work, you lose all the verisimilitude and truthfulness of the film. Well, the actors went through several months of training, and the fights were designed where Brendan's fights were lengthy and Tommy's fights were short. And that came out of character, but it also helped a little bit in casting because Tommy was not as adept as Joel was as a fighter. So we had to get Tommy prepared for in a very singular way, because he's just a bull that knocks people out and leaves. So we didn't have to, the designing and athleticism were different than what we had to do with Joel. All the other fighters in the movie are all real fighters. Nate Marquardt, Anthony Johnson, a couple other guys. The challenge for them was how to be stuntmen. That was the same thing because they had all the MMA, obviously, pedigree, but you have to kick and not hurt somebody. You have to punch and not hurt somebody. You have to take a hit and sell it. So the schooling for them wasn't MMA. It was how to become stuntmen. And they did a great job.